Welcome back to the Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater. And I hope everyone has had or been having a fantastic summer. I have been on holiday for the last couple of weeks, so haven't had a chance to put up any new films. Been diving into the archives and the bank for the last couple of weeks, but now that I am back, I am committed to getting caught up on some of the films that I have fallen behind on. And for me, that has to start with one of the bigger name movies that came out over the last couple of weeks, and that is the latest offering from DC Studios, the next in James Gunn's relaunch of the DCEU, and that is the latest incarnation of Supergirl. And this movie puts me in a very, very difficult position. I don't know if I've gone into this in previous episodes or not, but just for the record, generally I try to stay in a somewhat of a media blackout when it comes to a movie prior to my seeing it, reviewing it, recording it, uploading the video. Once all that's done, then I go back and look at what other people have said to see, how their perceptions rank up to mine. But I try to go into a movie as unspoiled as possible, so I'm not being influenced by any outside voices. And in some cases, that's very easy to do. In other cases, it's very hard. What's been kind of shocking is I really haven't heard much about this film in terms of its quality. I haven't heard anybody really talking about, is this movie good or bad? What I've heard is that it's done disappointing box office. I've heard that. And I've heard the backlash against the backlash, and of course the people saying that if you don't like this movie, it is because of misogyny. And I want to be very, very clear on this. I completely understand where that backlash to the backlash has its origins. It has been a poison with internet discourse about anything, but particularly, as I have found it, with superhero films with a traditionally female bend. The criticism against it has very rarely been anything to do with the story or the characters or the portrayals. It's just the fact that it seems like it's got a woman in the title, and therefore it invites all of these trolls. If you don't believe that there is misogyny online, and especially in these communities discussing these films, then you are willfully blind. And I can say that being a fan of these movies and films, and also being privy to the discourse, that there is a lot less coherent conversation about story structure or character development or takes on the material than there are, She-Hulk twerking, ew! And that's pretty much it. So does it surprise me that this film with a predominant female lead would bring around the same level of venom that past films and shows like She-Hulk, Ironheart, Captain Marvel, The Marvels, Black Widow, all of which I think are decent to really good in their own right, and yet the trolls got a hold of them, and you'd think they were the worst things, in creation. So Do I believe that this film has fallen prey to some of that misogyny? You bet your ass I do.
A woman is not an object.
Your mother's right, son. Listen to what it says.
In your opinion, is a woman even smart enough to be a doctor?
No way, man. This ain't like making no chicken cacciatore or beef stroganoff. You can't operate on someone using sex appeal.
Yeah, I know. You're a feminist, and I think that's adorable, but this is grown-up time, and I'm the man.
And with that in mind, I went into this movie really wanting to like it, really wanting to champion it. Because I want to try to be a positive voice for things that I feel are getting unjustly cut down. And I've been rooting for this film. I thought the new take on Superman did a fantastic job, and I was looking forward to seeing what else this new version of the DC universe had in stock. I also I thought from the very get-go that this has actually had things turned out differently, this would have been the film that I would have said they should have released first. Because this is the perfect property to launch a new universe off of. So many people forget. At some point, somebody's going to go back and do an in-depth look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how they started, how they grew it, all the right choices that they made that everyone else has been trying and failing to emulate. But one of the first things that they did, one of the smartest moves that they made, is they didn't start out their new universe with another Spider-Man reboot. They decided we're going to use one of our, I'm not going to say obscure characters, but I am going to say lesser known. People maybe had heard of Iron Man, but unless you were a full-blown, comic nerd, you didn't know who Tony Stark was. And I imagine that's a very weird thing to live in for some people who have never existed in a world where Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Thor, where these characters weren't, omnipresent in the pop culture. It's like trying to imagine a time before Star Wars or James Bond or Jaws. To some of us, these things have always existed. But they started with a character that they had a little bit of wiggle room with. Yes, he'd been around for a while, but he wasn't a common household name like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, or the Hulk. And from that perspective, this would have been the perfect character to start a new universe with. Coupled with that, and this is something, again, that real comic book aficionados will be aware of, there are very few characters who have gone through more reboots, reimaginings, reworkings, resculptings than Supergirl. This character has been redone so many freaking times, trying to map her origins and her stories and her alternate identities and all of this. It's a full-time job. Movie Bob did a series of big pictures on it back in the day, and if you really want to see how convoluted all of this got, go check that out if you can find it. And it'll explain just how twisty and turny and weird all the different incarnations of this character have been. And I think that's the perfect character to start a new movie universe with, because there's literally nothing you can do to this character where anybody will come back at with, but that's not how it is in the comics, because which comics? I really remember in the early 2000s, they reintroduced Supergirl yet again, and she kind of went through this hot mess period, which is very similar to what they do in this movie. So you have free range to use a character that people know, or at least are familiar with the sound of her name, but the actual ins and outs of her personality and characterization are completely up for grabs. There is no solid Rosetta Stone. Couple also with that this is a character who has had relatively few live action adaptations done, and therefore nothing that's really going to be held. There's no shadow. You don't have the shadow of Christopher Reeves hanging over this franchise. You don't have the shadow of Adam West or Michael Keaton hanging over it. You know, you don't have the shadow of Tobey Maguire hanging over it. I mean, the Helen Slater movie from the 80s, I can tell you, even this many years later, you can't even go back and say, oh, you know, it's so bad, it's good. It's just a mess. It's a confusing, unfocused mess. So you don't have to worry about that one. The CW show of a few years back, I thought was actually pretty good, and Melissa Benoist was a really good interpretation of that character. It had a strong run, but I don't think it really made her or the character a household name. You know, the Arrowverse, while very successful, also still kind of had a very niche market. You know? So, you have that, but again, I don't think anyone's really stacking the two up against each other. So, in other words, you had basically freedom to do whatever you wanted. And when you have that much freedom and that much potential, you know, expectations are high. Coupled with that, the fact that I was very excited to hear that Millie Alcock got cast as Supergirl. I thought she was very good in the couple episodes of House of the Dragon she was in. I thought she had a great look, and I was anxious to kind of see her take on a bigger role. So this movie had everything going for it. And it saddens me. It saddens me to have to come here and tell you this, that in the end, it's just not very good. And this puts me, as I've mentioned, in a very, very difficult position, because I want to deliver an honest critique of this movie and where I feel it fell down. But I also need to be very careful, because I do not want to be lumped in with the misogynist reviews, the people who just hate it because it's a female-focused story. And again, let's be clear, those do exist. So they are out there, and I understand, you know, why people are so, you know, are want to back this film, because they don't want those assholes to win. So I get it, but I have to be honest and tell you that I'm sorry, this film just is not very good. So what I'm going to try to do, what my challenge now is I'm going to do my best to explain to you why it is not good on the basis of a movie, not a female-led movie, not, you know, a female superhero movie, but just as a film, why this just doesn't work within its own genre or as a standalone movie. And I want to stress that I am giving you these opinions to the best of my knowledge. First of all, yes, that they are opinions. They are my thoughts. If you don't agree with them, fine. You're entitled to yours. And this is mine, and to give you the benefit of my expertise, which, yes, I do have, and try to explain why this just didn't fly. So I'm going to be very careful here, but let's finally delve into this film. So what are the major problems with this movie? I think the first thing, the very, very first problem that is omnipresent in this movie is that this movie has no identity really of its own, which is sadly ironic for a Supergirl movie, a character who has always stressed to get out from under the shadow of her more famous male progenitor and break out and establish herself as her own character. And unfortunately, this film, it feels and sounds and looks like a lot of movies that have come before it. I think that the key word that I use a lot on this show and that I walked out of the theater thinking of was the term visual language. And this film had no visuals or framing or cinematography or anything that differentiated it from everything else around it. A lot of people will tell you, and they are wrong, that all of the Marvel movies look the same. That they'll tell you that, and they are wrong. They have similar visual styles, a thing to link them all together to say, yes, these things do share a universe. But all of the directors who have been attached to those films have each had their own flair, their own signatures, the things that made those movies and those characters feel unique. If you don't believe me, go look at it even within the individual film series. Go look at the Captain America movie directed by Joe Johnston versus the ones directed by the Russo brothers. Go look at the Iron Man movies directed by Jon Favreau versus the one directed by Shane Black. Go look at the Avengers films directed by Joss Whedon versus the ones directed by the Russo brothers. Again, yes, all of the movies have similarities, again, to tie them together, but they each one has a unique look, color palette, cinematography, framing, these things that make them stand out as their own individual genre and character piece. And this film, this is a cheap knockoff of a James Gunn movie. That is exactly everything about this shows that director Craig Gillespie is just trying to ape James Gunn's style. Whether that was by edict or by choice, I don't know, but it is painfully clear. The idea to set this one in outer space and amongst the larger literal universe that the DC characters exist in, I thought that was a smart idea. But it looks exactly like the kind of outer space characters and planets, everything, as the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It looks identical. You would not be surprised to see Star-Lord and Drax and Groot walk through one of these scenes. There's nothing that differentiates this as its own universe. And again, look at Guardians of the Galaxy, look at Star Wars, look at Star Trek. These all have their unique looks. Yes, they're all in outer space and they all deal with aliens, but they're very, very different when you get down to the aesthetics. This looks like a dime store knockoff version of Guardians of the Galaxy. It also does the James Gunn thing that it was cute in Guardians. It gave the Guardians movies a unique flavor, and it's clear that music is very, very important to James Gunn as a director, and I can respect that. But it also has this thing of layering it in with golden oldies rock and all of that, which, I'm sorry, at this point it just feels tired. James Gunn did the same thing when he did Suicide Squad, and it didn't work as well as it did in Guardians of the Galaxy. It just doesn't. And they could have picked a different type of music. You know, sometimes it's as simple as that. The first two Iron Man movies leaned very much on AC/DC and heavy metal. That was the inside joke, but it gave the film unique energy. Versus, say, the Guardians, which did like 70s and 80s pop music. So you want to do that, fine, but pick a different genre. Pick rap. Pick country. You know, do something that identifies this as its own thing instead of just another version. You know, also, hey, did you think, like I did, that scene in Superman where Lois is in that protective bubble while she watches Mr. Terrific fly around and beat the shit out of all those henchmen was awesome? Well, I hope you did, because they do that in this movie twice. 2 times they do this. Again, I don't know if the edict was make this look like one of James Gunn's movies. And if that was the edict, then that was the wrong choice. And if it wasn't, then the choice to just ape his style and try to make it look like one of his movies instead of making it one of your movies, that was the wrong choice. The reason the Marvel movies work is because each individual film and each individual character has a unique look and feel to their films from anything else. So when they all come together, it's a blending of genres. That is one of the key things that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe work. And it's something that none of the others have grasped. All of the old DCU ones tried to look like the Zack Snyder template with the washed out color palette and the over seriousness, the pompousness of it. And now I fear these are falling into the same trap of all of them trying to look like James Gunn. And that is not gonna work. It doesn't work. It makes the film, instead of making this an individual ride learning about a new character, it just feels like a tired retread of stuff we've seen done way better in other movies, and it makes you think about those other movies instead of the one you're watching. So that is a huge problem. The other problem is that the story, while more coherent than the Helen Slater one, let's give it that credit, the story is just, it's another one that we have seen before. So, I'm going to give them some credit here. I liked the ideas that informed what they did. I liked the idea of Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin, who in most versions of her origins, and again I say most, this one does follow, where she was older when Krypton and her home city of Argo City were destroyed. She actually has not only memories of what she lost, but actual memories of losing it. And so she doesn't take to the, I'm just gonna land here and be a superhero and fight for truth and justice and whatnot. She's got pretty heavy survivor's guilt and a lot of trauma. And I think that's an interesting way to go with the character and a great way to differentiate her from Superman. So I like the individual ideas that this movie had. The execution, on the other hand, are just very tired. The kind of self-pitying sad sack that this Supergirl is, she's basically, I'm sorry, she's another Star-Lord. She's childish, she's sarcastic, she's snarky, you know, she's drunk and staggering around, but she doesn't want to get involved. It's not my monkeys, not my circus. And I want to tell you how Millie Alcock did playing Kara, but I really can't, because I don't think she ever really got a chance. She's playing Star-Lord. She's playing a gender-swapped Star-Lord. She doesn't have her own identity, and that is the biggest problem. The movie also has several other really smart ideas, or interesting ideas, that they don't follow through with. The inciting incident of this is that Kara is approached by a young girl whose family was killed by outer space bad guys, and the young girl wants revenge. And of course, Kara does, again, this is a very tired trope at this point, she does the same thing that Logan did, that Luke Skywalker did, hell, all the way back to Mr. Miyagi. No, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do this. Go away, kid. You're not gonna change me or crack through my cynical shell. Go away. Oh, wait, you got through, and I'm gonna be the hero I was always meant to be. Same fucking thing. It's not that the idea is bad, it's that when you just do the same thing that every other movie has done, yeah, what do I need to say? The other inciting incident is that what gets Kara to finally go is that the lead villain, we'll talk about him in a second, shoots Krypto the Superdog, who everybody knew and loved from the Superman movie, with poison, and she has to go and get the antidote to save her dog. Now, again, that seems like a great idea. That seems like a good inciting incident. You know, this is the only thing she has from her home, and it's her true companion, and she loves it, and we built Krypto up in Superman for the audience to love. So, yeah, this is a really good idea. The problem is, once she starts off on her quest, she doesn't go at it like someone racing against the clock to find a cure for their beloved pet. Ask any pet owner in that audience. Like, if that was your dog or cat or horse or whatever, would you just kind of be casually going, la da 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 da, gonna travel on this thing? You know, I'm just slumping here, gonna make a sarcastic comment. You wouldn't be. No! Again, I hate to do this, but compare this to what Superman did when Krypto was taken in his movie. He went fucking ape shit. But this ticking clock doesn't feel like it's a real ticking clock. It's kind of just something that they remind us of every so often. Of, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. It doesn't feel like Kara is in that level of stress and panic of losing not just her animal, but the one real connection she had to her home. It's more just kind of a thing that happens to her. So there's that. Here's the other one that they start that's a great idea, and then they drop it. So it turns out that these space monsters, pirates, whatever, that this young lady is chasing, that they're actually human traffickers. That they're stealing young girls from all these civilizations, or having people sell them young girls. Because their civilization is all male. So they're essentially trafficking girls to repopulate their species. There is so much you could do with that. That, for a story and a driving force for a superhero, especially one who, not exclusively, but I do think in a large way, is meant to appeal as a hero to young girls. That is a really good idea. Young women who are helpless and powerless find the courage to survive and fight through because of the symbol of this powerful woman who comes and shows them. Great idea. But once again, it's barely a footnote. They mention it And then it's just kind of forgotten, and they bring it up again when they need something for the third act, big blowout, and yeah, it's like I don't get it. Like, how could you let this really great idea die out and not use it? It's there. I still remember, and again, people bitch and moan about the Black Widow movie, which I think was really great, but that opening credit sequence of basically equating Natalia and oh my god, Florence Pugh, I've totally forgot her character's name, their childhood to being trafficked, and the visuals that they use to put that home. I think that's one of the most powerful and underrated openings of any movie ever. And it drives the rest of the film. And they did something with it. They made a statement, and this one wants to do that, but then just doesn't. And I understand in a way, because I myself and others made the comments about the Snyderverse that one of the big problems is that it was too fucking dark. You know, everything was so glower and joyless and unpleasant. And I see that these films are trying to go the opposite way. But again, I say the Black Widow movie made an entertaining, enjoyable, fun film, but still had those dark, serious undertones. You can have both. Now, I've gone off on this, and here's how I know that I was disappointed in this film, because I'm also a strong proponent of don't bitch about something unless you have a better idea. And here I do have a better idea. So, if it were me, imagine this movie. Imagine if this had been the film. So, what if Kara is exactly as she is as we meet her? She's drinking herself into oblivion. She is down. She is depressed. She's angry. But instead of being that goofy, snarky, sardonic Star-Lord, what if she was a little bit more like Dr. House? Just isolated, alone. She knows that she's destroying herself, and she is not making jokes about it. She is not treating it like a humorous side thing. It's real, and she knows it, but she doesn't care. And as she's going from bar to bar, she starts hearing these stories about girls disappearing. And because she is, and again, this is why I make the Dr. House comparison, even as full of self-loathing and survivor's guilt and addiction as she is, she can't suppress her best nature. And instead of doing I don't want to help you, I don't want to get involved with you, she hears this and starts going, hey, I'm going to look into that. And she starts asking a few questions, and that leads to a few more questions, and that leads to a few more questions. She starts to realize that this is a bigger and bigger problem. And you can still have her and the young girl sidekick make the young girl, instead of another one that is out for revenge and out for, our young heroine in the movie we have, again, has a fairly standard, you killed my family, I'm going to get vengeance on you, but our broken hero is saying, no, vengeance isn't the answer, it's only going to haunt you, blah, 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 you all know where this is going. So what if, instead of that, our young heroine, we're taking a little bit from an old 90s thriller, what if she was someone who actually escaped and is trying to find help, or is looking for her sister, and who teams up with Kara? They have a connection, and through each other, they heal. And Kara realizes that she needs to become the hero and the symbol that she has the ability to be, in order to right this huge injustice. That, to me, feels like a stronger, better character journey than just kind of connecting the dots, painting by numbers, and doing the same thing that we've done countless times. And as a result of it, none of the moments that this film has that are supposed to feel like big, crowd-pleasing moments, none of them feel earned. When Kara finally does don the suit and takes up the mantle of Supergirl, it's not this big, yes, she found her way out of the darkness. It's just kind of a, well, now the movie tells me I'm supposed to do this. It also doesn't help, I said we'd talk about him in a second, that this movie has the most bland and ineffectual villain. Not so much ineffectual, just no one gives a shit. This villain is no different. He feels more like a henchman than he does the main villain. And for someone doing something this evil, trafficking children, I think that needs to be a stronger, more intimidating presence than Johnny Pierce's face. Personally. And, yeah, I can't tell you anything about this villain other than the fact he has piercings in his face. It's, yeah. You can't tell me that, I know he actually is based on a DC character, but you can't tell me in the vastness of that massive catalog of characters, there's not someone that could have been more of a threat. There, you couldn't readapt even this character to make him, more intimidating and a more challenging presence than that. It's like, no. The only other thing I'll bring up, and this is one I hesitate to because it does lean into that, fanboy whining, crying, this isn't what Superman or all this does. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm going to throw this up for you.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert.
Maybe say spoiler before you give away the end of a movie, okay?
When Kara and her young friend finally have their final conflict with ineffectual villain man, Johnny Pierce's face, Kara convinces the young girl not to kill Johnny Pierce's face because it's not going to solve anything. You're going to carry that pain with you, make living your life a good way, your revenge, good stuff. And then Kara turns around and kills him. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't hate it in the same way that I hated Superman killing General Zod, because not taking a life is a huge part of Superman. And again, if you're going to go different from Superman with Kara and make her a little bit more hard edge, I understand that. But it doesn't feel right to me that a super person made the conscious choice to kill. Even in this latest Superman movie where he's beating the shit out of all these people, they go to pains to show that, yeah, he beat them up, but he didn't kill them. That was the whole thing with Hawkgirl in that movie, is that she would kill the bad guy even though Superman wouldn't. Superman protected squirrels, and, I just don't know how I feel about that. Maybe it's something that will pay off further down the road, but I always hate giving, these franchise films that out and just saying, oh, that'll make sense later. It's like, will it? So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about her actually consciously killing the guy face to face. That doesn't, I don't know. I don't know why I even brought it up. It's a point I'm not sure of. So yeah. So there's not a whole lot more I need to say about this, I think I've made my point, I hope. And I hope that I have made it with enough reasoned arguments and examples and alternatives that they could have done to illustrate that this isn't, me not liking this movie is not due to misogyny. I was rooting for this movie. It's due to the fact that I think wrong choices were made at the development and conception level. And whether that was a choice to try to play it safe, whether those were choices handed down by higher ups, whether, whatever the reason, the movie just is not good. I'm sorry. People are probably saying, oh, he didn't talk about Jason Momoa as Lobo, because what is there to fucking say about Jason Momoa as Lobo? It's Jason Momoa playing basically every Jason Momoa character that he's played. He's essentially just playing Aquaman again, just in different makeup. So again, it's nothing new or different. It's just Jason Momoa playing a Jason Momoa character, and it makes no real impression, just like the rest of the movie. So, and again, I need to stress, it does not fill me with joy to say this. It does not. I'm sad about this. I wanted this movie to work. I wanted this movie to work for the stars who clearly care about it. I wanted it to work for the legions of fans, both male and female, who love this character and wanted to see her on the big screen, but especially, the female fans, the little girls who need heroes and deserve heroes. And maybe some of them have seen this and it gives them that boost. And I hope it does. I really do. And if so, great. I'm so happy that that's true. I just think that there was so much more that could have been done with this than what eventually was. And, I know that's sad, but it's just the way it is sometimes. So, all right, I've talked on long enough. Let's wrap this up. So my final grade for Supergirl 2026, I'm sad to say I have to give it a D-. I didn't hate this movie. I think I should stress that. I know I've been giving it a lot of shit, but I didn't hate it. I just was disappointed in it. There's nothing really to actively dislike. It's functional. It hangs together about as well as you can hope. But, especially in this dour of a time and dour of a movie year, I was really hoping for something to land a big punch. And, it didn't. So, there you go. That's my take on Supergirl. Okay, so what a downer way to come back, but I think that's kind of the tone that this year has taken at the movies. Whatever's going on, I hope you all are doing well. I hope everyone is having a good summer. I hope we're ready to wrap up this year in fantastic style. And so thanks for coming along. Thanks for listening. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.